When a homeless man is found dead in a remote forest, detectives face a dead-end investigation. With no identity or motive, the case explodes when the victim is identified as a missing salesman, leading them down a twisted path of betrayal, a second hidden murder, and a shocking killer whose motive was simply terror. Hey everyone, welcome back to True Crime Daily. Hope you're doing great. Today, we're diving into a brand new case. Truly, one of the most mysterious files you'll ever hear about. Let's get started. This story is a painful one, a scene we've witnessed too many times. It makes you wonder, how does a person reach such a point? It's a tragedy. Without further ado, let's get into the story. Pay close attention. The details are crucial. The incident occurred in a rural area near a national highway connecting two cities. Scattered along this route are several small villages. Behind them lies a large forest, a known hunting ground. One of the villages hosts a busy weekly market, which means there's always movement of people. In these villages, there were many homeless people, vagrants. They didn't stay in one place. They moved between the villages. Among them was one vagrant who was different. We know the typical homeless person, often disheveled, mentally affected by their circumstances. But this one was somewhat cleaner, more composed. The second thing that set him apart was his demeanor. While other homeless people would openly beg, "Give me food, give me breakfast," this man was quieter. He didn't have that desperate, furtive look common to many homeless. We must remember, many who live on the streets are hiding. Some are even criminals from other cities, using homelessness as a disguise. A homeless person, anonymous and unseen, can commit a crime and vanish. This is a key point in our story, as you'll see. This particular vagrant was transient, but people in the villages had started to notice him. Sometimes he was seen with another homeless man. They seemed like companions. They would sit together, share a plate of food, but at night they would separate, disappearing to who knows where. His pattern was to frequent the village with the weekly market. That's where he was often seen with his companion. This went on for a while. One day, hunters in the forest made a grim discovery, a decomposing body. It was the vagrant. The authorities were called, the local police, the forensic unit. The public prosecution took over, ordering a full technical examination of the crime scene.
The investigation revealed two things. First, this was indeed where the body had been dumped. Second, the man had been dead for several days. However, the scene yielded no useful evidence. No clear footprints, no murder weapon. The victim had no identification, no papers. It was a dead end. The police started canvassing the villages the victim was known to frequent. People's reactions were telling. Men viewed the vagrants with annoyance, while women and girls were afraid of them. The police learned the victim had last been seen with his homeless companion, but after the murder, that companion had vanished. The other local homeless population had also scattered, fearing trouble. The forensic report came in. Cause of death was a single, massive blow to the head with a heavy object. The skull was crushed. Death was instantaneous. The time of death was estimated to be about 4 days prior, on the day of the weekly market, a day when the village was packed with people. Witnesses confirmed the victim was there with his companion that day. The obvious suspect was the companion. But why would one homeless man kill another? The motives could be anything: a quarrel over money, food, or some trivial slight. In the harsh world of the streets, life is cheap. The police theory was that after the market, the two had an argument that turned fatal. Villagers interviewed were of little help. They only spoke of their general fear of the homeless, especially at night. They confirmed that on the night of the murder, they were all in their homes. No one heard or saw anything. The investigation hit a wall. They didn't know who the victim was, let alone who killed him. Without an identity, they couldn't trace his life, his enemies, or his motives. The case grew cold for over 2 weeks. Then, a breakthrough. Using advanced fingerprint analysis, they identified the victim. His name was Owen Phelps, 30 years old. His profession? A merchant who sold grains. His registered address was in a city far from these villages. This was strange. Why was a grain merchant living as a vagrant.
Detectives traveled to his hometown. They found his mother, Eleanor, living in a modest apartment. She told them her son, Owen, had vanished 2 years ago. She had filed missing person reports, hired a private investigator, everything. Hearing he was murdered shattered her. She revealed Owen had been married to a woman named Daisy. Eleanor described Owen's life as unstable. He struggled financially, moving from one low-rent apartment to another. His only constant was his childhood best friend, Henry Hines. They were like brothers. Henry came from a humble background, but had come into some family land. With the wife missing, the investigation shifted to finding Daisy, the wife. Eleanor explained that Daisy had disappeared at the same time as Owen. In her grief and confusion, Eleanor suggested in her police report that Owen might have harmed Daisy, a theory she now deeply regrets. Detectives dug into Henry Hines. He and his siblings had sold their family land. Henry, flush with cash from his share, had then dropped off the map. His family had no contact with him. The strange triangle emerged. Owen, the victim, Daisy, missing wife, and Henry, missing best friend. All three vanished from their old lives 2 years ago. A theory formed. What if Daisy and Henry were involved? They conspired to run away together. Henry sold his land for cash. Owen discovered the betrayal, and his life spiraled. Did a confrontation lead to Daisy's death? Or did Henry kill Owen to be with Daisy? Police began to wonder if the homeless companion seen with Owen was actually Henry in disguise. Maybe after the money ran out, they both ended up on the road. Did Owen, during their time as drifters, learn that Henry had done something to Daisy? Was that the motive for the murder? But where was Daisy? If she was dead, where was the body? Obtaining an old photo, detectives launched a search. They focused on the last apartments Owen had rented, getting warrants for forensic searches, including ground-penetrating radar scans of the properties. A second breakthrough: Henry is found. As hope dwindled, a tip came from an unlikely source: the state penitentiary. An inmate, during a casual conversation with a prison counselor, mentioned knowing a Henry Hines.
It checked out. Henry Hines was indeed an inmate. He had been arrested and convicted 18 months prior on major drug trafficking charges, possession with intent to distribute. He was serving a 10-year sentence. This provided a solid alibi. He could not have been the drifter with Owen on the day of the murder. Detectives interviewed Henry in prison. He was initially resistant, but finally confessed to the affair. He said he and Daisy were in love and planned to start a new life. They used the money from his land sale to rent a house in a distant county. But then Henry's story turned dark. He confessed he had killed Daisy. He claimed she became volatile, threatened to expose him and return to her old life. During a violent argument, he lost control and strangled her. And the body? He buried her on the property. Led by Henry in shackles, investigators went to the remote rental house. In a tool shed behind the home, under a concrete slab Henry had poured himself, they excavated and found human remains. Dental records confirmed it was Daisy Phelps. So Henry had killed Daisy and hidden her body. But this solved only one crime. Who killed Owen Phelps, and why? Henry was in prison, so it wasn't him. The original Forest murder remained a mystery. Frustrated, detectives returned to the rural county. They re-interviewed everyone, now focusing on local tensions and any reports of conflicts involving transients. Their persistence led them to a local farmer named Arthur Dawson, a 51-year-old man. Arthur was embroiled in a bitter family dispute. After decades of marriage and 3 adult children, he wanted to marry a much younger woman from a neighboring town. His wife, Anne, and his children were vehemently opposed, fearing for their inheritance. The conflict boiled over publicly at the farmer's market. In a screaming match in front of vendors and neighbors, Anne, humiliated and furious, shouted an accusation that would crack the case wide open. "You think you're so brave? You're a coward. You killed that homeless man and left him in the forest like trash." The detectives brought the Dawson family in. Under separate, intense questioning, the story unraveled. Arthur confessed, but claimed it was a tragic accident born of fear. The confession was that
Arthur Dawson explained that on the night of the market, he was alone at his isolated farmhouse. His wife had left after the fight. Late at night, he heard pounding on his door. A disheveled man, Owen Phelps, stood there, mumbling, asking for help, for work, for food. Arthur wasn't sure. Alone, paranoid, and with the ugly public fight fresh in his mind, Arthur saw only a threat. He grabbed a heavy tire iron he kept by the door. As the man stepped uncertainly into the dim light of the porch, Arthur swung once and hit him in the head. The man dropped dead instantly. In a panic, he called his two oldest sons. Not knowing what else to do, they loaded the body into the bed of Arthur's truck, drove deep into the national forest, and abandoned it. It wasn't premeditated murder, Arthur insisted. It was a moment of blind, terrified panic. Two tragic cases now closed. Henry Hines, already in prison for drugs, was tried and convicted for the murder of Daisy Phelps, receiving a sentence of life without parole. Arthur Dawson was charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter. His sons were charged as accessories after the fact. Their trial would hinge on the argument of self-defense versus reckless panic. Look at the wreckage left behind. Owen Phelps, betrayed by his wife and best friend, loses everything and descends into a life of anonymous hardship, only to be killed by a stranger's fear. Henry Hines, led by passion and then rage, loses his freedom forever. Arthur Dawson, a man ruled by family conflict and fear, his own family's future with one reckless act. It's a chain reaction of pain. Sometimes you see cases where poor choices and broken trust don't just ruin one life, they collapse entire worlds around them.
So, what can we learn? The sanctity of boundaries? The devastating cost of betrayal? A friend is a friend, but there are lines that, once crossed, can set off an unstoppable tragedy. Owen, Daisy, Henry, Arthur, all caught in a storm that began with a single act of disloyalty.
That's our story for tonight, episode 1. Thank you for following along. May you all be safe and at peace. I send my greetings to you all. We'll be back tomorrow with a new story, a new mystery. Good night.